Namaste.
Pranam.
In the first year foundation course, we had studied the historical development of Kathak. Now you're in the second year, and in the theory paper it is stated that we have to learn the different Gharanas of Kathak in detail. Now although Kathak has been in existence for more than 1,000 years, the history that we know of, the details, is of not more than 200 years. The rest comes from literary texts and also from the spoken word of the descendants of the various exponents and gurus. So naturally, in the foundation course, while covering the history of Kathak, we had learnt of the three Gharanas. Can you name the three Gharanas?
Yes, ma'am. Lucknow Gharana, Jaipur Gharana, and Benaras Gharana.
Absolutely right. Lucknow, Jaipur and Benaras. We had learnt of the geographical location of these places. We had learnt of the kings and the nawabs who had patronized the dance forms. And we had also learnt the names of the gurus. We had touched on the stylistic features. In this lesson, we will deal with the differences in style and what makes the dance of one Gharana different from the dance of another Gharana. Now, we had said that Lucknow was a very sophisticated and cultured place where there was affluence and where people did not have to fight to live. So, the dance of Lucknow reflected this sophistication and refinement, and there was beauty in the dance, khubsurti and nazakat, nuances. Now, by khubsurti, of course, any dance is beautiful, but you can place your hand like this, or you can make the whole action consciously beautiful by. So, here the fingers, the wrist, the shoulders, the neck, the eyes are all involved. So, you're consciously spending time on each movement. After the fingers are kept, then your eyes move. Nazakat means nuances, hints. Now, I had also said that individual contribution of gurus is also important in a Gharana. We think of Prakashji. Now, it is said that Prakashji composed 360 Gats, that is Gat Bhavas or stories, and they were all written in a book called Pothi Prakash. But somehow this book was lost when the transition was taking place in Awadh during 1856. But we know of the contribution of Bindadin Maharaj. He composed beautiful thumris and bhajans. For instance, in one bhajan he says, Meri suno nath jaisi, sabko dukh nivara. He refers to various mythological incidents where the Lord came and helped his devotees. He refers to Ahalya, he refers to Prahlad, he refers to the men and women of Braj who were saved by the lifting of Giri Govardhan. And all these form beautiful stories. For instance, if you think of Giri Govardhan, rains coming down, and even before that, Indra with his lightning and thunder, then all the men and women appealing to Krishna, Krishna coming with his mischievous smile, then taking the mount and lifting it. Now, innumerable stories were presented by Bindadin Maharaj, many of them obviously taken from Prakashji's compositions, but we, or rather people we know, have not had the opportunity of actually witnessing Bindadin Maharaj. But my Guru and his contemporaries have seen the next generation, Achan Maharaj, Lachu Maharaj and Shambhu Maharaj. Regarding the nuances, I have been told that Shambhu Maharaj, he used to take one single phrase of a Thumri and go on elaborating on it. For instance, the very well-known line, Kaun Galin Gayo Sham. Galin means a little lane. Sham is Krishna. So how do you show it? First of all, maybe a Naika is showing the lane, following it with her eyes. Then again with the fingers, with both the hands. Then she can also walk and show it. Shambhu Maharaj also loved to sit down and show bhava. He said that you don't have to stand and dance. If you're a good dancer, you can even sit and dance. So, there, Krishna, where has he gone? Then for Krishna, the flute player. Then Krishna with the peacock feather on his crown. Then, after showing Krishna and the lane in various ways, the nuances go further. In fact, we have metaphoric presentations. Well, Krishna is dark, and so when a lady or a gopi takes kajal or kohl in her fingers, that is black, and she applies it to her eyes. Now, as she applies it, this is the traditional kajal, and it is a little dusty in the way, and so it sort of goes inside the eyes and the eyes start watering. So, where has this little black gone? Into which lane of my eye? Then, after applying the kohl, she rubs it, rather rubs the finger on her hair so that the kajal comes off. So, now within the partings of the hair, the kajal is lost. So, again, Kaun Galin Gayo Sham. Sham is now the kajal and Galin are the partings of the hair. Then again, some of it remains on her hands, and there are various lines on the hands. So, again, the black has gone inside the lines of the palm. So, in this way, the descriptions and the metaphors go on increasing, and the beauty of the dance, the imaginative quality is enhanced. Shambhu Maharaj was a master at this technique of presenting Abhinaya, and he called his presentations Thumri Andaz, or interpretation of a thumri, where a thumri of 4 lines could actually be presented for hours with different variations. Now, Shambhu Maharaji as a dancer, when he was doing abstract dance, was a very powerful dancer. Lachu Maharaji, on the other hand, believed in delicacy of dance. For instance, he would show a little dewdrop that fell on a flower. So here is the little flower bud, and this is the dewdrop, and very delicate action, as if you part your fingers quickly, the dew will disappear. Then in wearing an earring, the earring would be taken like this, and then when you put on the back part of the earring where it is winding, so he would use this action, which is a very delicate action. A smile has to be delicate. Everything has to be delicate. We had spoken of the great contribution of Pandit Birju Maharaj. In fact, Birju Maharaj has synthesized the styles of Pandits Achan Maharaj, Lachu Maharaj and Shambhu Maharaj. He believes that when certain rhythmic combinations are very powerful, then he will dance it like his father Achan Maharaj ji and his uncle Shambhu Maharaj ji. When any of the rhythmic variations are very delicate, he will dance it in the style of Lachu Maharaj ji. Another great contribution of Lachu Maharaj ji is that he would often bring in expressive nuances within pure rhythmic syllables. Da, ta, ka, thong, ga, da, ge, ti, ge, ta, ta, din, ta, te, ta, gir, ta, ta, ka, thong, ga, ta, ki, te, ta, ka, te, te, ka, ta, ga, di, ge, ne, ta. For him, every movement was full of expressive beauty. In the Lucknow Gharana, as you will realize, that Abhinaya is something that is to be deliberated on. Expression comes from within, from thought, from feeling, and it is not something that you can do very quickly. The Jaipur Gharana, on the other hand, believes in a fast rhythmic tempo. And this again has to do with the life in Rajasthan. Rajasthan consists of people who are of a military bent of mind. They have constantly been fighting wars, and even in their life is not very easy in the desert. So they have concentrated on rhythm, and in the Jaipur Gharana we have kavits and kavit todas, in which very fast poems are recited and expression is done to those. For instance, we have the Ganesh Vandana. Gang gang ganapati gaja mukha mandala giti gere giti gere giti thun thun tat tat thei jai jagavandana vakraso tathani thata vigna harana shubhakarana thagina thake thumaki tathar gatharu gadadi khene thei tharu gatharu gadadi khene thei tarunga tarunga dadi khene thei. Now in the Lucknow Gharana they would say, well, how have you established Ganesh? Just by Gaja Mukh Mandala. This is not establishing the personality of Ganesh. But again, this style of presentation has its beauty too. In the Jaipur Gharana, the movements are forceful and they are not dependent very much on the beauty of each particular movement. Rather, the beauty comes from the overall vitality. So you have movements like and they are movements which often have a resemblance with sword fighting. Again, as far as the footwork goes, in Lucknow there is a lot of variation. We use the full foot tap, then the heels, the side of the feet. But in Jaipur it is usually the full foot tap, because that gives you a lot of energy. But in the Lucknow Gharana, we believe in differences even in the sound production, the quality of the sound. Now the Benaras Gharana, we had discussed this earlier, is again different because in the Benaras Gharana only Nach bowls or Natwari bowls are used. We have discussed all these before and you know them very well, the difference between an Amad, a Natwari and a Paran. In a Paran, syllables from the Mridanga are used, but in Natwari, Ta, Thei, Tat, Tig, Dha, Tig, Tig. Now Janki Prasad said that for dance you have to use dance syllables. Otherwise what happens is that when you are using Parans, then the percussionists play very loudly and many people are attracted more towards the Pakhawaj and the tabla than towards the dance. Janki Prasad ji believed in the beauty of movements, and he often said that expression does not only come from the face, it comes from the entire body. Sometimes he would make the dancers turn away from the audience so that their backs could only be seen, and in this way they often danced to show that the face is not the only beautiful part through which dance can be portrayed. Janki Prasad ji paid more importance to the heel movements in Tatkar, so that instead of producing a lot of loud sound, you had delicate intonations. As far as the Abhinaya goes, in the Benaras or the Janki Prasad Gharana, more of Sanskrit verses were used, because there were so many Baijis in Benaras, and the Baijis were often dragging the dance towards a lower plane, because although the Thumris basically portray Madhur Ras, where you think of yourself as a gopi and your lover is no other than God. So it is a spirit of devotion, but for the Baijis, the lover was not a god, a simple lover, and often their portrayals were of a very low order. So Janki Prasad ji wanted to uplift the dance from this level, and so he wanted to concentrate on Sanskrit verses which would give people a sort of religious feeling. Now each style is different, each has its own intrinsic merit. You cannot rule out the beauty of powerful Jaipur dancers, nor can you underestimate the beauty and the nuances of the Lucknow Gharana. The Benaras Gharana is also very important, as it has more of concentration on the actual Angik presentations of dance, and there is very little of showmanship or dazzling beauty in the dance. Janki Prasad ji believed in the poetic quality of movements. Today, most dancers learn more than one style, because after all it is all Kathak. Now, in this year, we will also define the differences in the two strains or traditions of Kathak. One is the temple or the mandir pravaha, and the other is the court or the durbar pravaha. Now Kathak is perhaps the only Indian classical dance form which has been influenced by both the temple and the durbar tradition. Of course, the South Indian dance forms have been influenced by the court, but in the case of Kathak, by durbar tradition we actually mean the influence of the Islamic durbar. Now, we know that Kathak began in the early Hindu days I mean, when the whole country was only Hindu, and it was performed in temples. Then during the Sultanate period and during the period of the Mughal Empire, and even later on at the time when Kathak was performed in the courts of Muslim Nawabs, the Muslim influence came in. Now, how did this influence Kathak? In the Hindu context, when we come to a temple or when we greet someone, we do the namaskar. In the Islamic context, you do the ada. In Kathak, we have both the presentations as opening items. The salami includes this, and the Natpanchki Puja has the namaskar, then offering of flowers, offering of water, all of which are a part of the Hindu temple worship tradition. Then again, the Hindu dance style incorporates stories from our ancient texts, our epics, our Purans. Now, Islam naturally does not recognize these texts. Not only that, it does not recognize any form being given to God. And so it is because of the Islamic influence that the dance went from the mimetic to the abstract. Because when you don't have a number of dramatic stories to present, then obviously you will have to concentrate on another aspect. And so Kathak has so many abstract dance presentations because of this fact, because in the Islamic courts, the ancient stories from Hindu mythology could not be performed. Again, the dance became secular, whereas earlier it was religious. Now, whatever expressive items were portrayed through ghazals which featured feelings, desires, despair and so on of ordinary human beings. Earlier, you were showing the desire of Radha, you were showing the despair of Draupadi, you were showing the anger of Duryodhan. But now, whatever you are showing of human beings, not of gods. Then, technical terms. Now, of course, the technical terms are based on a certain language. Now, language is not a part of religion, but sometimes due to association, certain languages are connected with certain religions, at least in our mind it is connected. For instance, whenever we hear of Sanskrit, we think of the Hindu religion. When we think of Persian and Arabic, we think of Islam. Now, if you think of the technical terms in Kathak, you will find both terms that have come from Sanskrit and that have come from Persian and Arabic. Amad or entry is from Persian and Arabic. Salami again is a Persian word. Then there are technical terms which include both. For instance, like gat, nikas. Gat means gati, moving forward. Nikas also means moving forward. The first comes from Sanskrit, the second from Persian, which goes to show that maybe a part of the audience knew the word gat and a part of the audience knew the word nikas. That is why the two words are joined together, both meaning the same. And so this item was performed in the courts for everybody to understand, and the influence of both the languages show the influence of both the cultures associated with those religions. The costumes too that are worn in Kathak are both of Hindu and Islamic tradition. In the Hindu tradition, we have the lehenga or the long skirt and the choli, the blouse, and the jid that you have, or the veil. Then that is for women. For men, you have the dhoti and you have the chadar. This is from the ancient Hindu tradition, especially even now in Rajasthan you will see the women wearing lehengas and the men wearing dhotis, and dhoti is worn throughout India. Now with the Islamic culture came the churidar, the tight fitting pants, and the angarkha, or the frock-like costume, tight at the waist and then with a flare. Then also in the Islamic culture, you have the importance of the veil in the case of women. So in all the Islamic tradition dance presentations of Kathak, you have the veil covering the head, and then certain ornaments. For instance, you will have the jhapta, which is worn here in the Islamic tradition, whereas in the Hindu tradition you have the bajuband, which is not found in the Islamic tradition. So today Kathak stands at a point where both the Hindu and the Islamic culture are still present. In fact, one is associated with the temple tradition, the other with the court tradition, because in North India, the area where Kathak has been performed for centuries, the court meant the Islamic court. Today, we are not trying to propagate any religion, nor are we dancing in front of any emperor, but we can take whatever we find to be beautiful from these two traditions. In fact, we often find a combination. We first dance an amad, then maybe we do a paran. Again, gat nikas, which I said is a combination of both the styles. Then we do a ghazal, and maybe before that we have done a drupad, which is of the ancient Indian tradition. A thumri has influences of both the tradition. You can think of it as a bhajan where you are the devotee and your lover is the god, or you can think of yourself as a human being pining for your lover or having a wonderful time with your lover. We have inherited a very, very rich tradition in Central Asia, where the Islamic influence is dominant. The dance form does not have much in the form of abhinaya. Again, in the South Indian and the Southeast Asian dance forms, the Hindu tradition with abhinaya is predominant, but again, the beauties of Islamic aesthetics is absent. So we are the proud inheritors of both the traditions, and I'm sure we will do justice to both of them and keep both alive. I wish you all the best, and I'm sure you will enjoy learning about Kathak and performing Kathak. Namaste.
Pranam.